into a brand new wave, drowning out the noise that's tame. Liberty whispers through the brave, breaking free from every chain. Nullify the rules they crave, crypto beats that pave the way. Anarchy with minds that's safe, algorithms new dawn today. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride. Beyond control we take a stand, casting off the iron brand. Freedom flowing through our hands, revolution's our command. Decentralize the way we plan, all together we expand. Breaking shackles for the clan, in this journey we're unplanned. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride.
Hey.
Sup, yo? All I gotta say is, before we get started today, why don't you go become a sponsor and hit that QR code? Would you like to hit the other ad there, buddy?
Sure. Well, I guess you already got to it. So, are we all ready? Here we go.
I mean, I was saying run the ad, like spin it back, man, but sure,
That's my bad.
sure.
That's all
Yeah,
right.
if you yeah, anyways, everybody, if you like to go try some Dubby, get your energy boost, why don't you go over to w.gg and get yourself a little sample and use our 10% discount.
Yup.
So,
Energy drinks, man. They're killer.
I've been reading about these guys, Dubby. It's actually pretty awesome. And I'm not talking about the product. I'm talking about their sponsorship approach. It's pretty amazing. These guys are basically sticking a middle finger in the face of YouTube by flouting all of their guidelines, right? Like right now, we're sponsored, right? We don't have a viewer requirement. We don't have to have 10,000 fans that we would normally have to get the attention of just about anybody. These guys are giving us access to a system that boosts this show programmatically by doing this. It's pretty fantastic. It's one of the more cypherpunk things I've ever seen a brand do. So proud to sponsor them, even though I've never tasted it. Or proud to be sponsored by them, even though I've never tasted it.
I'll be trying some soon.
Yep. Yeah, Lexi wants some too. My wife wants to get some. So we're going to be checking it out.
No, Dave, it's not a partnership. It's a sponsorship.
Is it a partnership? It could be a partnership.
I guess technically their wording is a partnership, but I mean,
cool.
Yeah, their wording is a partnership, but technically it's a sponsorship.
Yeah. But it does get us into those gears that we don't normally have access to, right?
there you go, everybody. If you haven't tried Dubby,
Yeah.
listen to Dave.
And also, if you've got a show, go get sponsored. Go get a partnership.
Mm-hmm. So until you can't, right? I'm quite sure it's a limited time only, so you can only.
Oh yeah.
sponsor
I mean, I don't know
other
if they'll do it
people.
forever, but
Terms and
Mhm.
conditions apply. See energy drink for details.
yeah, I already
Mhm.
put a little bit of Dubby flair on some of my stuff. If you guys saw the latest video from the article, if you watch to the end, one of the scenes that plays behind it shifts from like playing video game speedruns to a Grok generated Dubby rocket launching into space. It's fantastic.
That's
So,
funny.
Yep, we love you guys. Anybody who partners with us is gonna feel the love.
Oh, of course, of course. So speaking of feeling the love, how about that old Basilisk?
Oh
I
my.
mean, in order to feel the love in society and with technological advancements and trying to figure out ways to uh, spruce things up, I guess is a good word for it.
Yeah.
The practicality of such. I'm saying let's get into chapter 10 already, everybody.
Let's do it. You guys want to
Let's
start with
let's
letting?
actually dive into this.
Do you guys want to let ChatGPT tell us all about chapter 10 so we can give everybody a refresher?
Yeah, let's do
Sure.
it.
I will
Let
share screen.
ChatGPT.
I got this already queued up for us. There we go. I think this is right. Yep. So I started by giving it a summary, right, of like having it summarize the whole document. So I put the document in. I said, give me a synopsis. And it just ran through it. And then after that, I said, deep dive on 10. Okay. So we're going to have it do a quick little deep dive for us, and then we can jump in.
Sweet.
If I can get to the bottom of this. It's not a quick little deep dive ever when it's mine. And maybe later today I can open up and show my customization settings so that people can figure out like how to make theirs behave more like this if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yes. Here is the deep dive you're actually asking for. Not a summary, not polish, but the full conceptual excavation of what Chapter 10 must become if Law Zero is to land as a canonical work. The goal is simple. Translate 9 chapters of diagnosis into 1 chapter of design philosophy that can survive contact with reality. To make this worthy of the rest of the book, we treat 10 not as a list of heuristics, but as the first articulation of an engineering discipline, a praxeology of intervention-resistant systems. Below is the full deep architecture. Chapter 10, Designing for Non-Recursion. You have spent 9 chapters teaching the reader to see basilisks everywhere, and more importantly, to see how basilisks get summoned, nurtured, idealized, and defended, even as they fail. This chapter is not the moral of the story. It is the first blueprint for a civilization that doesn't keep summoning them. The key move.
Oh, failed to play message.
Well, I
Fail
probably.
in the play.
Oh, no, that was my fault. I tried to generate a grok image to amuse everybody instead of just letting it keep playing. That's my bad.
Oh, it happens. Don't worry. How dare you?
That's grok. That's not. Sorry, I had them both do it just to see, but let me go back to here.
Yes. Here is the deep dive you're
Sorry,
actually
guys,
asking
listen to the
for.
first part again.
Not a summary, not
That's all right.
polish, but the full conceptual excavation of what Chapter 10 must become if Law Zero is to land as a canonical work. The goal is simple. Translate 9 chapters of diagnosis into 1 chapter of design philosophy that can survive contact with reality. To make this worthy of the rest of the book, we treat CH10 not as a list of heuristics, but as the first articulation of an engineering discipline, a praxeology of intervention-resistant systems. Below is the full deep architecture. Chapter 10, Designing for Non-Recursion. You have spent 9 chapters teaching the reader to see basilisks everywhere, and more importantly, to see how basilisks get summoned, nurtured, idealized, and defended even as they fail. This chapter is not the moral of the story. It is the first blueprint for a civilization that doesn't keep summoning them. The key move. Into
Weird. It keeps
Uh-oh.
stopping on us. Let me just keep reading from there. I'll just read aloud. Look at this. AI can be set aside, and we can just have humans do stuff.
Exactly.
Let's see. So where were we? We were at.
I bet you'll read better than I do.
We were at the very beginning, basically.
Some people say I'm not a bad narrator. Other people hate my guts and tell me to shut up. I'm not sure which is right, but I like the people who listen.
Mm.
Okay, so I think here we are. Let's see. This is it. As we said, the blueprint for a civilization that does not keep summoning them. The key move. Interventions can't be eliminated. They must be bounded. And those boundaries can't be moral, cultural, or aspirational, only structural. You're now designing structures. The first principle, the goal of governance is not control, but damage containment. This is where you depart from, or this is where I depart from technocracy, libertarianism, anarchism, NRX. Sometimes it hallucinates this stuff. I don't know what it means by this.
Neo-reactionary.
Oh, right. Okay, gotcha. Is that a shorthand for neo-reactionary? That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, progressivism and neoliberalism in one clean stroke. The only stable framing is governance exists to prevent local failures from becoming global catastrophes and to ensure local successes can propagate without central permission. Now, let's really unpack this. We don't want local failures to be global catastrophes, and we don't want to stop local successes from propagating without central permission, right? So like this is about stopping central permission as a structure. This is about stopping global solutions as a mode of approach. Because if we're doing either of those things, we've already lost, right? Global solutions create global catastrophes. We know this now. And local successes in systems that try to prevent global catastrophe by muting local conversation, like censorship systems, right? Those prevent local successes from propagating, because anytime someone figures out something true and right, unless it aligns with the already existing narrative, right, it's not going to be heard. We saw this happen over and over again in the pandemic with stuff like early treatment protocols. It's just the way that shit fails. is the dumb way to put it, but that's what it is. So everything else in chapter 10 flows from this. So section 1, the body analog is the wrong one. For 200 years, Western governance has relied on biological metaphors. Body politic, immune systems, nervous systems, central organs. These metaphors presuppose a single point of survival, which immediately births basilisks. If the whole body must survive, all deviations threaten the body. If deviation threaten the body demands coercive compliance, and any failure becomes proof that more coercion is needed, right? If your kidneys are filled with cancerous cells, you cut one out and you chemo the death out of the other, right? Don't let the cancer decide for the body. It's a biological metaphor that works when you're treating terminal illness, but doesn't work super great for society because it's an ecology. A thriving system is not one body with one immune system. It's millions of interacting microorganisms, none of which dictate the whole. This reframing is what allows the design principles to be structural rather than moral. So section 2, the core law zero design pattern. And if you guys want to stop me to ask questions at any point, please feel free. I'm on the screen reading, so I can't see your faces. Section 2, the core law zero design pattern, locality plus reversibility. This is the heart of chapter 10. It should be given a name, the local reversible design pattern. It's actually kind of cool because it really does put it straightforward. LRDP says you can express it succinctly. Oh, wait. Any intervention that cannot be localized is dangerous, and any intervention that cannot be reversed is terminal. And when locality and reversibility are present, failures stay shallow. When either is missing, the system gravitates back towards basilisks. So locality.
Why don't we stop there and explain that a little bit? The idea of effectively weighing in on a specific version of intervention. So because I mean, one of the things you highlight is at the very beginning of number one on your strategic plan is refusing to intervene in itself is an intervention. So why don't we explain that a little bit of what you mean by that?
Right. The temptation with seeing this stuff, and the potential point of confusion, I think, with combating this stuff is, seeing one of these effects is a moment where you have to choose a new path. You can't after you see a basilisk effect remain in the frame of the effect, arguing over the terms of the false dichotomy it's setting up, right? Like, it's not conservative versus liberal or Republican versus Democrat. That's the trick it's playing on you, right? That's how a basilisk perpetuates itself, because we get trapped in the arena it's already staged for us to get trapped in, right? Where we fight each other over the terms of the policy rather than try to question the terms themselves. And you can see that play out all the time when you talk about foreign policy as a concept, right? Like we really are pointing to the foreign policy basilisk, because no matter who's in charge, it seems like we end up invading countries, doesn't it? Right? This is another way of seeing through non-uniparty puppet theater, right?
It's recognizing to get from point A to point B, you have to see the second or the third or even the fourth effect in the option, rather than go full on into what is already presented on the surface level.
Exactly, because what's presented on the surface level in this system is staged for you to have a fight about. They've already pre-planned for you to have, right?
They expect your time preferences to be skewed and for you to react.
Exactly.
Accordingly.
Exactly. Pretty much exploiting your natural decoder that's in your head for tribal warfare, right? They're trying to instigate it. And it works. It works really well. I mean, because you can even do like one of the tricks that they use now that people still miss, is that they say something that they know for a fact you will disagree with, and they know for a fact you'll disagree with in a certain way. And they set you up to say that so that the arguments that ensue organically keep everybody involved with this distracted from whatever the heck they were talking about before. It is the ultimate self-diverting system. This thing hides. Basilisks try to hide from you, but once you see them, the answer isn't fight them, right? You don't say, "Hey guys, everybody, this is a basilisk effect," and try to teach them law zero and then try to get society to change. Right? We can't do it that way. It won't work. We won't have their attention. So what do we do instead? And that's what this chapter is really about. Did that answer what you were thinking?
I'm thinking it. For me, it did. It did.
Okay.
I mean, it all comes back to patience is a virtue. Everybody, patience is a virtue. Discipline is a sub virtue within that patience. So it all comes down to patience, perseverance, and discipline.
I love that you said perseverance too, because that's really a lot of what we're up to here. Right? Like the temptation when seeing really big problems like this is to give up too. Right? I feel like there's that big temptation of like, this is too big for me, right? To look at the whole world and go, this is so broken. What am I to do in my little old self here in wherever I'm watching this? It's designed to make it feel insurmountable. Actually, I feel like one of the strategies that these systems end up cultivating as a survival skill, right? Like they don't even do it on purpose because people aren't supporting them so much out of a desire to promote basilisks as they are that they're trapped in it. They're focused on the fear that it generates.
I think that's just how society's set up in today's day and age. I mean, it's meant to break you. That's why you have people working 2 or 3 jobs to try to make ends meet and survive. That's why people are going to a shitty job. It may pay very well, but they have way too much responsibility for pretty much nothing at all. and they're making decent money, but they're not there to see their family. They're missing things out of their children's lives, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the systems that are in place today, and the worry of what I'm thinking they're trying to utilize AI systems for the future in a technocratic way is to harness that energy of that enslavement. They're trying to replace the element of imprisoning your mind. Now they've already imprisoned your body. Now it's time for your mind. Next will be your soul. And
right. Mike Benson covered it last night. Actually, I don't know if anybody saw his show last night, but it was basically talking about the Marshall Plan for the mind, which is what they've been executing ever since the end of World War II.
I mean, that was probably the greatest scale of welfareism ever known to man.
Yeah,
to get people just get people that little nibble on that line of dependence.
Well,
get them comfortable with the feeling of outsourcing the responsibility to somebody else.
Right. Well, and that's the difficulty of explaining this to people, right? Like before we had, and one of the reasons I wrote this book is because I feel like the argument for laissez-faire has been lacking a grounded theoretical backing that doesn't involve calling back to past authorities, right? Like we try to have the Mises people change things. They can't change things because everybody sees them coming, right? We have all of these groups all over our society that see the problem and are falling into the trap of staring directly at it in fear. What we need is to see past the basilisks after we've seen them, because the way that we take them out is not to fight them directly. It's to bring clarity and to implement systems that don't generate them.
Well, when we speak past each other, we create friction, which gets people's attention.
Yeah. Well, there is a third way to break basilisks too, but we already talked about those guys, and I'm not going to ask anybody in here to go out and become Norman Borlaug unless they want to. However, should you have a giant ambition to break a basilisk by building away from it and making it irrelevant, that is one thing we're not going to talk about in this chapter. This chapter is more about for like regular people who aren't about to go invent a new way to grow food. But also have access to the tools that they have in modern society and can change the world around them locally because they have influence over their space. That we all do, right? Whatever you do in your home, in your apartment, in your life, at your job, whatever, the problems you solve there are your successes to own. And as it turns out, there's a lot of little basilisk interventions in our lives, right? So this is step one to degrading it, but we can't just sit here and look at the problem, right? We have to see the problem for what it is and then recognize that the answer requires strategy and requires something more than what we've had before. I say at one point in the book, you can't argue with it, or you can't debate it out of existence. You can't vote it out of existence, right? Like, this is a problem we have to understand. The only answer to a basilisk effect is to understand it first. And once you understand it, then what do you do? And that's this chapter. So we're going to crystallize it as design law, basically. So section 3, it says the 6 canonical principles of anti-basilism, and it's taking liberties, right? This is a you should still go read the book rather than have ChatGPT synopsisize it for you. But this is a pretty good synopsis, but it doesn't quite hit the meat of it. You know what I mean?
And you can go to @DesignHeretic over on X, and there should be a pin where you can listen to the book.
Yep, you can listen to it all the way through, and you can also message me, and I'll send you anything from EPUB to text, whatever you prefer. So that link that I had up before expired, so I had to delete it. But I'm looking for a new hosting solution right now. I may actually just vibe code one into existence. Who knows? Maybe one of the listeners will after I after we explain vibe coding. We'll get there
Well,
later. Let's keep on reading.
Yeah.
Section 3, the 6 canonical principles of anti-basilisk design. They are emergent from LRDP, so let's remember that acronym. Acronyms I hate sometimes because it's very easy for local reversible design pattern. So they're emergent from local
Reversible design pattern.
local reversible design. So it's local hyphen reversible design pattern. I like this term of art, but I do not like this acronym. So when I put it in the second edition, I'll probably spell it out all the way. But these are not policy recommendations. These are structural requirements. Non-intervention is default. Intervention is experiment. Not laissez-faire as ideology, right? That's not what we're doing. We're not just saying non-intervention is good because that's what good means. We're saying non-intervention is a smart default in a system of complex systems that you're trying to intervene in, right? So if we're going to take an intervention, we're going to have to do it a special way if we want it to work. Not all interventions are by default broken. Oh, granted, that does imply that all the interventions we've tried to make so far haven't been made carefully enough to not be broken. So this is still kind of an argument for laissez-faire. It's not a strict argument for laissez-faire. I'm not saying from a moral standpoint we shouldn't have big government. That's a preference of mine, right? That is not a requirement for this. You can still build a complex society of rules carefully over time if you wish to have interventions. You just can't do them willy-nilly because I think, like I said at the beginning of the book, the sorts of things we intervene in pass through a terrain much more unforgiving than politics likes to admit. So, like, it's probably not going to work is sort of the first principle. Don't intervene until you know the blast radius, basically. So, like, if you understand what you're going to do fully, then you can maybe do it. But if you don't, then you can't. So an intervention is just a controlled explosion. So you carve out experimental zones with pre-declared rollback conditions and no power to expand without demonstration of benefit. This is something we don't do now at all in our politics. We literally let politicians promise stuff and then sort of half-ass hold them accountable. Like some people in the media say this maps to a promise they made, but they never say these are all the promises that haven't been met yet. Or these two promises are absurdly conflicting with one another. So one or the other has to be true. Which is it, politician? Right? We don't do that. If we did more of that, we'd already be halfway there. Anyway, technocracy hates this because it decentralizes experimentation. Libertarianism hates it because it acknowledges legitimate governance, right? And this is hard for me because I'm ultimately a diehard libertarian, but it's also true. So I had to say it, right? Libertarians can fetishize non-government as a solution to social ills when sometimes government's the solution to social ills. Just look at street crime.
Yeah.
Right. That has its own basilisk effects, right, that we can talk about because the prison system itself doesn't really do justice once we've stopped the crime. But because it doesn't turn out people that come back into society okay. It turns out people who never come back into society for the most part. That's a problem, but it's a problem we have to have, right? Because we can't not enforce against street crime. That's a libertarian would say something along the lines of we should privatize it. Well, okay, neat. How do we get there? And if how we get there from here doesn't involve solutions that integrate with the systems we already have, then it's not going to work either, right? So even a libertarian has to look at this and go, the status quo, me not intervening, is an intervention that keeps things going the way they're going. But what I want to happen requires this kind of intervention, I think. Now let's test the theory. Right? Progressivism hates it because it limits the speed of central crusades, right? Progressivism is antithetical to it. There is no version of progressivism that won't build basilisks. That's just what that system does. So, in fact, I think progressivism, if anything, is sort of like the worship of the basilisk.
Compound interests.
Yeah, it's what happens with the sort of the secularist mindset of progressivism. They tend to wholly crusadeify everything that they do because they don't have any other out for their their hooger, so to speak, their spirit. But we can debate that a different day. Okay, so 2, modularity with mandatory rollback path. Every complex system that avoids basilisks have the same trait. Failures can be undone without destroying the system. Really great examples. Git, you can roll back a commit. We roll out a version of our software at Rivet that breaks. That sucks, but we hit a button and the last version comes back online, right? You can roll back a Kubernetes deployment. You cannot roll back a CBDC's coercive power, nor can you roll back a DEI bureaucracy. It's already done the damage it's going to do. It's not rollbackable. We don't go back to the start state by just undoing the law. So rollback must be fast, cheap, unambiguous, non-politicized, and above all procedural, right? Like, it can't be a thing that we discretionarily do, because discretion is sort of like the mother of all basilisks. But this is the design principle that killed the ancient basilisk called price control in every country that escaped cycles of famine. Rollback is life. Many small players beat one large player, even when the large player is good. This is Mises, Hayek, Taleb, Lorenz, your universal law, my universal law, rolled into one principle. Centralized competence still loses to distributed adaptation. You show why. Competent central planners ossify. Competent central planners summon basilisks faster because they are trusted. And competent central planners always die or retire, and the basilisk remains. In other words, a good king is more dangerous than a bad bureaucracy because only the former can make the latter immortal. That's clever.
Makes sense.
I love it when ChatGPT proves to me that machines can write. Most of the time, I'm like, that's hackneyed garbage. We're not putting that anywhere. But when I see a great line like this, it makes me smile. This is the future in preview right now. If we build AI right, it will only churn out this kind of quality writing. This becomes a structural argument for anti-centralization, not ideological, but thermodynamic. This is interesting. Visibility without vulnerability. Transparent but not panoptic. Chapter 8 sets this up beautifully. Transparency must be a process, not people, which means, right, we don't have spies. We have systems that monitor. Of mechanism, not metadata, right? So we can't have systems that trigger based on like a bunch of selected search terms over a geographic area or something like that. That's not a basilisk-friendly surveillance mechanism, right? That's just going to create chicanery. And of decisions, not private behavior. So this whole theory, just like praxeology focused on economics, for what it's worth, is about decision making. This is about making decisions as a group to intervene in private activity. If we're talking private behaviors, we're already not talking about basilisks anymore. We might be talking about something, but we're not talking about this. So we want transparent algorithms, transparent policy evaluation, transparent accountability, and opaque individuals, right? We don't want a CBDC. We want whatever the reverse of that is, where the government is pinned down to reality like a butterfly on a display board, and the civilization around them is anonymous. That's the ideal situation, right? Technocracy wants the opposite, and the basilisk thrives whenever transparency leaks downward instead of upward. So you hammer a design rule. Systems are transparent upward and opaque downward, or they invert and become basilisk regimes. This is simple, right? A simple design principle. If we are looking at the people, gathering information, and then building a solution, we're making a basilisk.
But wait, so does that prove that the people are retarded?
No, it proves that people with imperfect information make huge mistakes, even when they're doing their best. Right? That if you don't fully understand what you're doing, you will do inevitably a bunch of stuff you didn't intend to do. And the Basilisk effect tells us that what that means is we end up getting the opposite of what we set out to get in a lot of cases.
So the Basilisk basically describes, through the reality of it all, that people aren't stupid, nor will they ever be stupid. We're just ignorant.
Right.
There is no.
And
And we should
we're
stop.
ignorant, but we also
going
care matter. You know?
Yeah,
All of us.
and we should stop going on the internet and just calling people retards that we disagree with.
Yeah, it's
I'm guilty of.
oh, everybody. Yeah, the reason they call it the fundamental attribution error is because everybody does it. Right?
Mhm.
Are you guys familiar with fundamental attribution error?
No.
It's the rule that you will understand immediately when I explain it. You're at work, you're there on time, you're having a good day, but it's morning meeting time and Bob hasn't shown up yet. He was gone, or he missed the morning meeting last week, and he's 5 minutes late. Everybody looks at Bob and they think, "What a character failure, right? What a loser! This guy needs to get his life in order." His manager will probably have a talk with him, right? That kind of shit. And everybody at the table will think, that's fair. He's constantly late. Wonder what's wrong with this guy's makeup. His core character is flawed. But then you show up late to work the next day because you hit traffic, your kid was sick, and you got a call from the dentist that you couldn't skip, so you had to take it in the parking lot, right? You show up, everybody gives you the Bob look, and you think to yourself, circumstance. I'm not a bad character. Circumstance, right? It doesn't register when we look at other people, but it does when we look at ourselves. And the fundamental attribution error is that most people's circumstances are unknown to us, and so why should we assume character flaw when whatever they're doing is more likely a circumstance-related thing?
I mean, to take that example, actually, that's the reason why people end up losing motivation. That's the reason why people start not doing their work. They start showing up late. Maybe they just say the hell with the job, just using the job example, and they quit because it's not the fact that that people are staring you down or snickering behind your back or telling you off because you were late because of circumstances, because Bob over here is late constantly. It's the fact that Bob is constantly late that it's causing the office to pretty much say you can't be late. Like they're making the general the
it's not the opposite of the rules, right? It's management. It's really more people getting Stockholm syndrome for their leadership and then engaging in cruelty behavior.
And
then
at that point, because you don't want to be the one ridiculed, you just either quit or everybody just starts doing what Bob's doing and nothing gets done and productivity drops.
Well, and living under a manager like that puts you in a place where that's the world we inhabit. That targeting somebody else because of their situation means you're not under the microscope. So there's always a benefit to somebody else being in trouble.
And they call that confirmation bias.
The confirmation bias and fundamental attribution error, right? Because we do really make the mistake of assuming that people are going through a situation that's just as manageable as ours, and we never consider those circumstances except when we think of ourselves meeting expectations or not meeting expectations that we have. We tend to forgive ourselves while damning everybody else. And that's just a reflex that human beings have. And so fighting against it is tough because it makes us have to look at, like, for instance, the Bob situation, right? Or the you situation if you show up late for work. Right? The way that we address this at Rivet is to literally have a no sludge rule where nobody's allowed to mention time on meetings. And if somebody's late, we assume the circumstance by default. Right?
So is Bob smiling, Bob? Because there might be a reason why he's late.
Yeah, Bob could be in trouble, but we don't know. We don't know about Bob. But
I mean, Bob just took his daily dose of extends, and his wife just needed to have it. So,
I thought Bob was going on the Bob and Tom show.
You can't have priapism and show up for work, I guess. Maybe you had to just wait for it to die down in the car.
Flex those muscles, boys.
Yep. All right. Shall we move on?
Andrew,
sure.
We're talking about another muscle.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh,
Well, that's how you relieve the tension. Flex the
oh,
muscle.
all of them have to do with, yeah, exactly. It's all spasms when it comes down to it. All right.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I don't have any muscles.
Fractal choice. So forking as a civic right. If interventions must be local, people must be free to exit, fork, opt out, and build their own parallel structures. Forking kills basilisks the way fire breaks kill wildfires. So forking is what. So, and forking, by the way, is a computer programming term for people who don't really speak that lingo regularly. When someone puts a code base, like a bunch of text files, because all computer code is just a bunch of text files with funny file name endings, right? You put these all into a structure, and then the computer follows the program to read them so it knows what to do. But the way that programmers keep track of these is they put them into a change control system called Git. Well, there are others, but Git's the most popular. And what Git does is it keeps an exact copy of everything. And then every time you make a change after it's in Git, it gives you deltas so that you can see what changes were made at version 2 from version 1. And if you needed to, you could take version 1 and the deltas and rebuild version 2 from scratch, right? And it's bidirectional. So that means every change can be tracked and every change can be rolled back instantaneously. A fork is what happens when someone says, I wouldn't have gone that way with this programming choice. Right? They're looking at the code base on their Git repository and they're like, yeah, you just did this change. I don't like it. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the last version, hit the fork button and make the changes I would have. And we're going to call my project, your project sucks. This is a better one.com part 2, right? Or whatever.
Copy left.
That is a fork. You take what somebody else has created and you diverge from it. And that's a big part of how open source code operates, right? Like most of the best projects on GitHub that turn into software products that people use or that support products people use, all that stuff for the most part wasn't first version, right? The forks are the things that matter. Ethereum is a fork of Bitcoin, for example.
The separation of powers?
Yeah. And Bitcoin
Cash. I don't know if Ethereum is a direct fork of Bitcoin. I think, Litecoin, direct fork of Bitcoin.
Litecoin is direct. Bitcoin is basically just a heavy direct.
Yeah.
And then you're about to have, if it hasn't really gone, you're about to have yet another fork in Bitcoin. I mean,
yeah, it's true. Bitcoin Cash.
No. There's that new what's
Bitcoin Knots.
Yeah,
right.
Bitcoin Knots is about to going to fork.
I haven't heard anything about that in a little while.
Fork.
So
I haven't either.
Yeah.
But it most likely
that was interesting. Well, and then Ethereum, right, like has billions of forks too. It was sort of the first version, but everyone has everyone's been on Base or whatever or Polygon. You've heard of all these. These are all what in the lingo of the industry we call EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine Compatible.
Mm-hmm.
So they've all been forked from it. And it's a lot like what we did with computer software in the 80s, right? Like operating systems. There's Linux and Unix based ones, and that's pretty much it. And then there's Microsoft that ripped off Linux, but didn't take the complicated parts with it.
Yeah. That's what speaking of Ethereum, like that's what's the best part of the Ethereum network in my opinion is it's so easily enabled to fork from it. And then you can also apply like layer zeros and to the exchange as well that can be compatible, I guess, with just about anything that you want to make it compatible to, whichever network you want it to work and run with, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum or what have you. Solana.
Well, and if we think about code and change control in combination as sort of a canonical law of whatever this program is supposed to do, right? We can think of our legal systems as programs in a repository, right? And our law corpus as code in the current version of the build of our society. And if we think about that, then forking becomes a matter of like, okay, let's say your state figures out something cool and it makes, I don't know, street crime go way down. Let's say that as an example, right? Whatever this intervention is, if the state next door decides to put it in place, they won't put it in place as is. They don't write laws about your state. They fork it and change the names of the states and the counties and the stuff, right? But they may still use the same protocol. That is the ultimate form of a fork in government. And it already happens, right? Like there's actually a ton of legislation that gets sort of cross-written by template, but it's all top down. So, and that's the biggest difference between law as it's created and code as it's created, is that law relies on pre-selecting the people who are allowed to edit, and code relies on whoever's interested will find their way to the thing they would wish to edit.
Mm-hmm.
And while there's like a control at the top, it's like a veto, where whoever creates the project in Git can say like, every change that comes through must be approved in what's called a pull request. It's like their chance to veto the change. So that's how you can have like somebody come up with an idea that they own and control it on Git. But in the United States or in any country, we do it by first electing people to build Git, their version of it. And
when in reality, we should have people with some common sense that is willing to adapt and innovate off of what you already have, rather than just going off of what you already have and repeat the cycle. Why not create something that's better?
Right.
And then from there, create something else that's better. And I mean, let human action literally fulfill itself.
Right. Because what forking says is it's okay if you do your thing over there. I'm uninterested in that. Right. I'm more interested in what I'm doing with it after the point we started disagreeing about what to do with it.
I mean, before the show, we were talking a little bit about aging parameters and constructs and stop barriers, and also jumped a little bit into, well, why does the Bible say that people were living at one point almost 600 years, and then it keeps incrementally getting lower? And perhaps it's a metaphorical speak, but perhaps maybe it's not. Perhaps there's a way that we can fork in the aging process, speaking of forks, and develop a way to stop or slow down aging to the point where you can actually have more time on this earth.
Let me explain to everybody actually why that's totally possible, and why we shouldn't be necessarily afraid of it. Right? Because once upon a time, people died when they would get like a sinus infection.
Yep.
Right. And back in the day, the church, whose job was to comfort people who were suffering, right, especially the dying, sort of became intertwined with that system, right, to the point where like they saw antibiotics as a threat to people's need for them. And so there was initially some rhetoric that the church and the various churches played around with opposing antibiotics at first, suggesting they were against God's will, right? Like if God wanted to kill you with a disease, then you should not try to intervene and stop it. You should just go along because that's the plan. And certainly as a society, humanity shouldn't dare invent anything that makes that impossible.
Yeah, everlasting life. So that kind of gets into the way. Like there's more to this life than the next, and I can understand the rhetoric on there.
Right.
But why not?
But that doesn't excuse it. But that doesn't excuse us of our mission here. If the divine reward at the end of the rainbow is further off because it must be for whatever our purpose is here, then not solving this problem, not inventing antibiotics, would have been a subversion of God's will. And I think we can see that in hindsight, right? How many people do you think survived childhood illnesses that furthered goodness in the world later because they lived through it? How many people, like when my grandma died, the priest who spoke to her before she died said the weirdest thing to him. I know why she said it, because my grandma was a lot like me. but he'd never heard it before. She said, "I'm not done here. I'm not ready to leave." She was 90. I feel like there's more work for me to do. My purpose has not been fulfilled. God has more work for me. I'm not done. I'm so frustrated with the fact that I'm being taken out of life right now. And he's like, it was really hard for me to reconcile that because she did dedicate her life to doing lots of good stuff, right? Ultimately, he helped her find peace, but that had more to do with their personal relationship than anything. There are things that humans have not done yet that we have to do if we're to achieve whatever it is we're here to do. You know,
and that's not to go away from to kick people down in their beliefs and say that some people might be meant to live on this earth for a little bit more of a temporary time and die younger, get caught up at a younger age, because what they've done good. They don't need to do anything else. And then, like, take Steve Jobs, for example, right? Like, perhaps maybe he did what he did and then that was it. Like, he didn't need to necessarily go any further. But then there's other people, like, say, your grandma. Maybe she did have another extension of life in her to fulfill some good. I mean, we don't know.
She got pushed into taking that stupid vaccine, and then pancreatic cancer kicked in inexplicably 3 months later. God knows, right? Like, it was. She was taken. She wasn't. She was killed. She wasn't.
She was. Yeah. Well, that's the case. She was she was murdered. Yeah. So
I think we're going to learn that pancreatic cancer the pancreatic cancer spike that we saw post vaccination release had a lot more to do with the vaccine than people are willing to admit right now.
Oh yeah.
Like, because she was healthy every day of her life. She literally never spent a night in the hospital until she went there to die. And it was like fast onset. It was the weirdest damn thing. Not that people that age don't die of pancreatic cancer, but the fact that it was so contemporaneous. She'd always been healthy before that.
Also, YouTube,
because she was trying to live long enough to get to some of the reverse aging stuff that she knew was coming down the pike.
Also, YouTube disclaimer: fuck COVID and fuck them vaccines.
Yeah, and fuck them whole ass roads.
Yeah.
I think my story of family pressuring their elders into playing along with the thing, and then anybody who wasn't in to get out on the pressure was outside of it watching, going like, "Come on, guys, just invite me to Thanksgiving. Don't kill grandma, please." But
yeah, there's something to that vaccination, actually, just because, like, from my experience, like, my mom passed in November of 2022, and there were some other things going on, and she actually had COVID like 3 times. She did get the vaccine. She had reactions to both shots, and she had other issues prior to the COVID fiasco in 2017 and 2018 consecutively. So one was her back, and then the next year was one was some weird shit that happened with her liver, and that almost took her out. And then she was finally getting back to normal there, and then her back went out the year later, and then all this. But then she was starting to kind of get back to herself, and then she got hit with COVID 3 times, and then she started getting back to herself. She did take the vaccine when she was able to, because of COVID, and she had like a weird rash reaction to the first shot. Took the second just because she presumed she needed to, and she was always relatively healthy, especially for a woman that to live her age and was a constant smoker since like 8. My mom was.
Oh wow, yeah, so, that's actually amazing.
Yeah, and that took her down, and she was starting to get a little bit back to normal physically, at least. I mean, she had some other emotional things going on because of other people. But the fact of the matter is that she started getting better and started to feel a little bit like herself. And then she went in for her she was the type that she was always on it for her flu shot, and it always worked for her. I mean, she never had any issues with the flu shot. So she went for her annual flu shot when the season began, and then she had like a weird reaction. She never had, first off, she's never really had the flu after getting the flu shot, which she got probably the most sick that she ever got. Secondly, she had a weird rash that and just a weird reaction to where it like popped up her arm, and we started thinking, I was like, Mom, I think Dr. Glick may have snuck in the COVID shot on you, the COVID booster on you rather than give you a flu shot. I'm thinking that might be what happened. And she really was never the same after that. I'm not gonna deny that. So to this day, I mean, I think there were some other issues, but yeah, she died because I'm still gonna claim that she died because of the vaccine and my doctor, or our doctor, which is not my doctor anymore.
Dude, this is insane. Because it's entire. So I don't know if you guys ever looked into like the pharmacokinetics of the vaccine and how it actually worked. The virus itself targeted this system in the body called the ACE system, ACE. There's a sequence of receptors that rely on this enzyme that uniquely, compared to other enzymes in the body, travels through the bloodstream and is metabolized from one form to another as it passes through body systems. So ACE1 metabolizes and breaks down into ACE2 in the brain, which flows into the lungs. And that is what coronavirus attaches to, is the ACE2 receptor. And from there, it starts destroying the ACE2 system, which, the lungs normally break down to ACE3, which then pass on to another body system, all the way up to ACE 9, 10, 11. It hits every one of your body systems after unwrapping like a Matryoshka doll, right? That means that manipulating the interface point between coronavirus and your body, we created a vaccine that injects a payload after taking up the spike protein slot that causes it to make more spike proteins sans payload, right? So essentially what we do is we create a little virus that makes null viruses that once all of these spike proteins latch on to the ACE2 molecules, that they will just block the ability of the coronavirus to latch on and inject its own payload, killing the disease, right? This is the theory. What does that do to all the body systems that need ACE3, ACE4, ACE5, ACE6 for signaling as it passes through from all of the ones that get these cancers? You have to imagine, right, that any type of cancer, all the way back up to ACE11 settling in the brain and screwing with ACE1, could be impacted by this approach to treating. And that to me, that like, especially considering the year that they rolled it out, they also pretended like there was no flu virus. Suggests to me that maybe there is an interaction between this and the flu vaccine. So I just asked Grok about it, but it said that it hadn't any evidence of it.
Of course,
as it would, because in GPT land, evidence of or absence of evidence is evidence of absence.
If you can't prove it, then it's not true. Even if it's true, you have to have the proof.
Yep. And until then, the only proper answer is to conclusively say that it's not true, right? Woe be to anybody who dares try something like hold two conflicting ideas in their mind at once and wait for them to resolve from the facts. Sorry, I shouldn't be bitter about it. So
what we're talking about here, everybody, is basically the Basilisk.
Yeah, how a whole system that was meant to make us healthy got spooled up, fired out its best effort, and managed to do nothing but make us all more harmed. Despite the fact that probably almost everybody involved had the best of intentions.
Well, the reason the system was able to become designed like that and hijack certain systems like the medical industry is because the United States Constitution was literally homicide was committed with the Marbury versus Madison case.
Yeah.
And that led to a cycle that would eventually, in my opinion, would lead to the COVID fiasco.
Yeah. Well, I mean, stare decisis is the rule of exceptions ultimately, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is where we can watch what accumulates from a constitution that can't be specific without being too specific. Right. So
and then you have justices that decide that, well, they need judicial review.
Mm-hmm.
They need to review it in order to. Yeah.
Judicial review was actually not even a granted power, and it shouldn't be a power.
Nope. It shouldn't.
The Article 5 courts created by Congress. It should only be the Supreme Court, really, even if we're going to have that at all, and even that's not enumerated.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the problem with it is that it just, and we saw the inevitable effect of it after that case in 1803, when you start seeing case law precedent start setting in the core, when you start taking certain laws on the books to the courts, it goes to the highest in the land to make it official, and judges start dictating from the bench what is law and what is not law. And that's where you get to the fiasco of like Roe v. Wade. Luckily, Roe v. Wade this time around was overturned, but you shouldn't have the courts either setting the standard or overturning the standard. The courts should just say yay or nay. Is this unconstitutional or is this constitutional? Should this go to the state? So
right, and if the Constitution is inadequate to render a decision, then society will change the Constitution if they don't like the outcome. So, like, no law shall abridge free speech could be interpreted literally. And if and we might feel compelled to amend the Constitution to make an exception if we saw, like, a whole bunch of people start getting rich in some gross new porn industry or something. dogsandkidsandcats.com would be something we might amend the Constitution over if it was a porn site. But setting aside that gross mental image. Sorry about that. I sometimes get overly vivid with the metaphor. The problem is
I'm not going to sleep for days.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that to you.
That's all right.
It's like, but it might make us amend the Constitution. I can see that actually ginning up a constitutional convention to say, like, all free speech except for like porn about non-consenting beings. Right.
And to speak, you've been waiting.
I was just gonna say, I mean, in a winner take all situation like this, it shouldn't take decades for people to sit there. Oh well, we're following the law. No, if there's a situation needs to be corrected, it needs to be a fork, like we was talking about before. The national.
And that's the danger of the status quo too, right? Like if we just watch and in dismay, then our intervention is to accept the status quo. Yeah. And we see where that leads. So, should we try to keep charging? Okay.
Let us
Section
jump back
3.
into it.
The 6 canonical principles of anti-basilisk design. They are emergent from LRDP, but and LRDP was what again? Let's remember that. Let's check the acronyms one more time, unless I can rattle them off from memory. Do you guys remember what it was? Local reversible
design. There we go. Design pattern.
Yep.
So
they're emergent from local reversible design pattern, but you can articulate them as the Law Zero canon. And these are not policy recommendations; these are structural requirements. So bear in mind, this is literally
Brass
the
tacks.
only unconfigurable part of this whole thing. Like you can apply it to different stuff, but if you start monkeying with these principles, then you're no longer doing what the book is trying to help you do. So one, not non-intervention as default, intervention as experiment. This is not laissez-faire. It says don't intervene until you know the blast radius, basically. An intervention is just a controlled explosion. We don't demolition skyscrapers without first checking into the physics of how they're going to collapse and placing the explosives carefully so that they collapse into their own footprint, right? Anybody trying to use Congress to blow up buildings would just topple them over on people all the time. Just look at 9/11.
Those filthy Belgians.
An intervention is just a controlled explosion, so you carve out experimental zones with pre-declared rollback conditions and no power to expand without demonstration. And this actually gets it wrong. No power to expand, period, right? Forget demonstration of benefit. If there's a benefit demonstrated, great. You can talk about that in your debate about whether or not to reenact the thing from scratch at the beginning of the process, right? Because what we're not going to do is put sunset clauses that are extensible in anything ever again. Because all that did, as we saw with the Patriot Act, was create opportunistic moments to amend it to be more draconian. Technocracy hates this because it decentralizes experimentation. We read that already. So 2, modularity with mandatory rollback paths. So every complex system that avoids basilisks has the same trait. Failures can be undone without destroying the system. So we had all those examples we gave before. Rollback has to be fast, cheap, unambiguous, unpoliticized, and procedural. So every law that intervenes in something that is not determinate, like where we don't understand the whole system, those laws must be procedurally constrained to expire no matter what. And if we like those laws, we put them back in, but we don't do it in an expedited way. We don't make sure there's continuity. Continuity of law is less important than the unambiguous procedural rollback process that has to happen if we want to avoid basilisking. Rollback literally is life. Like if we can't roll back, it doesn't work. So actually, and this is the design principle that killed the ancient basilisk, called price control in every country that escaped cycles of famine. Right? Okay. So many small players beat one large player even when the large player is good. Centralized competence still loses to distributed adaptation. You should know why, right? Competent central planners ossify. Competent central planners summon basilisks faster because they're trusted, and they also always die and retire. So they leave behind the systems they create. A good king is... Did we read this part already? I feel like we're rereading.
Yeah, I believe we did.
I think we did, actually.
Yeah, I think we were just going on section 5.
So this is why the machine should always read, because right?
If it's one thing the machine can do, it's read.
Yep. We can set the machines about doing anything mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
Visibility without vulnerability. So this is transparency. We read through that one. Fractal choice. Okay, now we're back.
Yeah.
So fractal choice, forking is a civic right. We talked about this too.
Yeah.
So this is why decentralization is not political preference. It's a basilisk sterilization tactic, and that's the key takeaway here. And then crypto, open source, we talked about that. It's funny, we didn't even get down to here, but we kind of covered a lot of this stuff. Exit right jurisprudence, city-state formation. This is an interesting one.
Actually, let's hear your take on city-state formation, Greg. You got a lot of
context.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, I'm going to open a new chat because I actually have one on this. See if I can find I might have to scroll back up at the top. So we're at 6 just to keep everybody there. Where's the new chat bubble button? Oh, here we go. Okay, so we're going to ask, can you...
It might be able to read too now.
We just give it a try. All right, so I asked, can you detail my city-state protocol idea for the legacy right audience? We're discussing Chapter 10 of Law 0, and it's apropos. Ever since the sequel to The Matrix, I've been using apropos. That scene with the architect.
Hmm.
Where that guy used that
I
word.
I was curious why you used that word.
Yeah.
I'm not even entirely sure what it means.
It's a way of saying like a thing matters to a thing. So, like Chapter 10 of Law 0 is apropos to the city-state protocol. And like in The Matrix, when he said that, Neo said something about choice, and he goes, apropos, that's what you're facing right now, a choice.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I don't like
Let's see if we can make it read aloud. We'll try again.
Yes, I can give you a rendition that speaks to their priors while preserving the architecture of your protocol. I'll treat them not as rubes to be manipulated,
Thank you.
but as a coalition of people who intuitively want sovereignty, order, subsidiarity, inherited continuity, and the dignity of real self-government, but who lack a crisp blueprint for how those instincts scale beyond
No, it failed to play.
Oh man.
Well, you know what I'm going to try? I'm going to try this. I wonder if this will work.
I wonder why it's failing to play today.
It's probably because I'm getting some kind of connection weirdness. I don't know. Maybe I need to turn off AirDrop. Sometimes that works. Actually, I might also have too many windows open. My computer is really old. Let's try that. Okay. Let's try it one more time.
There's
Yes.
nothing beats a British guy.
I can give you a rendition that speaks to their priors while preserving the architecture of your protocol. I'll treat them not as rubes to be manipulated, but as a coalition of people who intuitively want sovereignty, order, subsidiarity, inherited continuity, and the dignity of real self-government, but who lack a crisp blueprint for how those instincts scale beyond vibes. Your city-state protocol, the Mega Texas protocol plus new city-state DAO stack, gives them exactly that, a restoration of civic autonomy through cold procedural precision rather than romance, revolt, or reaction. Here is the full exposition, in their vernacular, with enough philosophical
I wonder
steel
what
to
it thinks
fit
your
seamlessly
vernacular
in
is,
C
Legacy,
and
right?
Shade 10's discussion of
I haven't
recursive
talked to it
intervention,
about you.
privacy, and the right to secede from failing leviathans. The city-state
Gaelic.
protocol, a practical path to sovereign subsidiarity.
Irish Gaelic.
Legacy right instincts, those that want to conserve what works, restore order, and re-anchor political authority in human-scale communities, are stuck in a peculiar bind. They long for the civic competence of the founders without believing it can be recovered through national elections.
Actually,
want local
Andrew's vernacular is
self-determination,
German.
but face institutions that have metastasized into panoptic precautionary bureaucracies. They understand something is gravely wrong, yet don't know how to build a functional alternative without triggering federal immune responses. Your city-state protocol resolves that bind through governance realism, a sequence of lawful, procedural, replicable steps that result in sovereign local polities without revolution, without utopianism, and without permission from declining state structures. 1. Start at the county level, not the capital. The Mega Texas Protocol recognizes an asymmetry that Washington prefers you don't notice. States are federations of counties, and counties quietly hold much of the operational sovereignty that makes life tolerable: law enforcement, land use, infrastructure, emergency response, property records. Instead of trying to win America, a better strategy is to win a foothold in reality, a single county or municipality, and govern it with such competence, clarity, and transparency that the model becomes contagious. 2. Deploy simulation first. New city-state DAO before touching real politics, the system runs in full simulation mode. New City-State DAO is the parent simulation framework. It spins off child DAOs, New Dallas DAO, New NYC, New Pinhole DAO, etc., each modeling the existing city charter, the existing fiscal flows, projected tax base health, services the city actually needs, services the city performs ritualistically, how to restructure all of it under a city-state constitution. This is the opposite of ideological improve. It is governance prototyping. It is constitutional dry runs. It is the engineering discipline missing from every political experiment since 1787. The legacy right has long called for federalism and subsidiarity. This is federalism with version control, diffs, and governance staging environments. 3. Use democratic lotocratic randomness to neutralize capture. Every city-state constitution under the protocol contains a
disagree.
necessary safeguard, a lotocratic executive veto mechanism. One eligible
hear it out.
citizen is chosen at random to sign or veto proposed rule changes from event data triggers. This prevents party capture, prevents donor capture, prevents bureaucratic calcification, ensures no expert class forms, aligns with the legacy rights instinct that ordinary people often have more sense than the credentialed caste. In Sheet 10 terms, this design is a Basilisk nullifier. It denies the system a stable foothold from which recursive intervention can entrench itself. 4. The universal law of intervention as the metastasis filter legacy. Right thinkers instinctively distrust centralized power because they've seen the same pattern. Every institution built to fix something becomes a cartel to rule everything. Your universal law of intervention formalizes that intuition. Every intervention that assumes human failure creates new incentives that increase human failure. The city-state model treats this not as a moral failing, but an engineering constraint. Thus, no city-state may grant itself exceptional powers justified by emergencies. No agency may expand its remit by claiming it must prevent hypothetical harm. No bureaucratic entity may propagate precautionary pseudo-authority by nudging, surveilling, or credentializing. The city-state survives because it cannot metastasize. This makes it uniquely attractive to the legacy right. It guarantees order without tyranny. Another 5, lawful secession. Through accretion, the patchwork strategy. The protocol's endgame is not rebellion, but multiplication. As multiple municipalities adopt the protocol and restructure themselves into efficient, solvent, transparent city-states with clean books and high trust, the project scales horizontally, not through revolt, but through demonstration. A patchwork emerges. Dozens, then hundreds of city-states, each sovereign in practice, all bound by mutual defense pacts and shared commercial interoperability. Eventually, the logic flips. The old state structures begin depending on the city-states rather than the reverse. This is the legacy right endgame they've wanted but could never describe. Not civil war, not collapse, but an orderly reversion to human-scale governance. 6. Why it resonates with the
A
legacy
divorce?
right. Your protocol speaks their language without pandering, order without authoritarian drift, sovereignty without revolution, competence without
What
technocracy.
if the chat GPT is
community
concerned
without
about pandering
parochialism,
to people who are on the
tradition
right?
without stagnation, freedom without chaos, lawfulness without obedience to failing institutions. It restores the dignity of local self-rule while immunizing it from the recursive traps that swallowed the republic. 7. How it fits into law. 0. Chapter 10. Chapter 10 is about privacy, recursive
No, they got it
intervention,
wrong.
and the right to refuse assimilation into metastasizing
Good job,
systems.
chat.
The city-state protocol is Chapter 10's political analog.
Mm,
It is a
Yeah, we're going to
privacy
stop.
doctrine for
It's leading us
politics.
astray.
It is a refusal mechanism.
So this
for
is where
cities.
you iterate. You go, no, that's
Yeah.
not chapter 10. Start from the tie-in. Get it right this time. And we're going to do this. Where did I get that? There it is. Usually the best way to get these things back on track when they're off is to just brute force them back into the corpus that you're interested in.
Oh, yeah. It's thinking, it's reading.
See, now it's going to stop pretending it knows what the hell it's talking about.
Mhm.
Should we make it read
Yeah.
or should we tell it to answer now? Let's make it read. Let's see what it's
Yeah,
doing.
let's make it read.
Okay, so here's what it's doing. Let's run in code.
Mm-hmm.
Break,
Checking from
break, break,
chapter
break.
10.
All 0.
This
There we
is
go, so-
the nerd form of ChatGPT, everybody. This
Hmm.
is what you don't necessarily realize is there.
Behind the scenes.
What it's
The Greg Lang.
what it's actually doing.
I didn't know they didn't give this feature to everybody.
I don't know if it does. I know the free version probably doesn't.
Well, if you click on anything with an arrow in their interface, you typically get like more information.
Oh,
So maybe
okay.
it does, but I've seen it not do it. So it could choose not to in more cases. I don't know.
It says peasant. You need
So
to
now we're about to get a damn good answer. Honestly, this thing's going to actually
Mhm.
give us the right thing because you can tell what it's doing here. One of the neat things it's doing that we can maybe touch on before the end, and maybe I think at this point touch next time, is vibe coding and what that actually is, and how we can all become cypherpunks of our own now.
by learning to code.
No, by making this thing do it and figuring out how to talk to it so that it doesn't lead you astray.
Mhm.
Best part about code is you can always test to see if it'll run.
Mhm.
Right? Like we have to read this stuff to make sure it's right, which is why the listen feature is so useful in ChatGPT. But
Mhm.
but computers can read that for you if you're writing code.
Yeah.
And so it's real easy to go like, is this right? Blink, and then you just shoot it back over the error and it'll fix it. It's pretty slick. Basically, like we got to teach people how to imagine computer programs that are useful as opposed to how to code. If that makes sense.
So don't just learn how to code, everybody.
Don't learn how to code, learn how to project manage.
Exactly. And make the AI code.
Yep. It's your coder, it's your copy
Greatest
editor,
ambition.
it's your business analyst.
Don't forget about Notepad++.
So it looks like you really nailed it this time,
It's-
doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah.
We'll find out.
We will. Oh, wow. It's getting into detail. So while it's going, background on the city-state protocol. It was an extension of the idea of megatexts, which originally was this funny idea that I had where like you could technically secede as a county if you wanted to, and then reform under a new state. So like hypothetically, all the counties along Interstate 70 could mega Texas their way out into membership in Texas. Right? We already have non-contiguous jurisdictions that cross geographic boundaries at the state level. Why not at the national level too? Right? Like, or at the county level too. So there's absolutely no reason on earth that my hometown in Trigo County, Kansas, all those people couldn't vote to leave Kansas and suddenly be part of Texas right in the middle of Kansas. Right. That was the original idea.
Really?
Leave a jurisdiction, join a new one. But that's not what this is. This is something different.
Mhm.
This takes it to a level where it says, well, you guys remember Constitution DAO, where like a whole bunch of people got together and tried to buy an original copy of the Constitution as a DAO?
No.
I did not hear this.
So they almost won the auction until the jerk that runs the financial firm that killed the GameStop people, the ruined Wall Street bets by cutting off liquidity to Robinhood.
Mhm.
That guy,
I remember that.
That guy showed up to the auction last minute and bid it out from underneath the community who had raised enough to win, but hadn't counted on somebody not wanting them specifically to win.
So hold up. Somebody else has the
Dude showed up and bid. Well, it was an original draft, one of the 3 original draft copies.
Mhm.
Yeah. And this guy got a hold of it just because he was pissed that a decentralized association was going to win it if he didn't. So Dude stepped in to basically just flip the bird to that kind of collective action. But
I mean, was he Jewish?
I don't know. I mean, he works for a major Wall Street fund, so like he's an underwriter, probably. But if not, then probably tightly associated.
No, he's Belgian. Filthy
Oh, is he?
Belgians and their waffles.
Hmm. There's nothing wrong. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with being Jewish. It's what you do. And being a jerk is the problem.
Yeah, it's not really ethnicity or race or nationality or culture. It's just it's how you abuse your situation in life.
It's whether or not you respect the people that you live next to, whether or not they
Exactly.
agree with you.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I really want I really wish that the world was about 150,000 Liechtensteins, city-states with monarchies.
Or however you want to structure it. That is the super neat part about the protocol, right? Like, if you think your version of Peronism is going to work, and you've got like 10,000 people that want to take over a city and try it, okay. Just don't get mad if somebody in your city decides it sucks and wants to go over to Austrian paradise next door.
Well, see, that's why I want a DAO-based king, a DAO-based king.
Do we really want a DAO-based king, or do we want a DAO-based kingship that randomly selects qualified people after n number of decisions are made?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right, exactly. Stochastic monarchy. That's what I call it. I call it stochastic monarchy.
Mm-hmm.
We can have all the benefits of democracy with all the benefits of monarchy and none of the drawbacks of oligarchy if we do it that way.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, let's see what.
You're right. That first pass treated CH10 like the city-state chapter instead of what it actually is. The strategy layer for dealing with recursive.
There we go. Now it's on point.
Let's anchor in the real Chapter 10 spine and then grow the city-state protocol out of it as a worked example for the legacy right.
Thank you.
1. The tie-in. What Chapter 10 is actually doing. Chapter 10 isn't about, here's a cool new polity. It's doing 3 things. 1. Stating the constraint. The universal law of intervention and the Basilisk effect are not moralistic scolds. They're physics-like constraints on complex systems. Open quote, every intervention in a complex system tends to generate feedback loops that intensify the problem it was meant to solve. Centralized interventions with long feedback loops and no exit are the worst offenders. Close quote. 2. Distinguishing action from re-intervention. The chapter draws a line between reactive meddling inside the existing loop, the stuff that turns into basilisks, and post-basilisk design, building structures that obey the law from the start, so they don't metastasize into the thing they were trying to prevent. 3. Offering a pattern language. It lays out recurring design moves, strategic restraint instead of panic policymaking, small, modular interventions with rollback, parallel institutions instead of fixing captured ones, decentralizing the right to intervene, making exit cheap and visible, tying power to reputation and reversibility, not to permanent offices. All of that culminates in a simple instruction: stop trying to win the loop and start building beyond it. That's where your city-state protocol walks in. It is Chapter 10 translated into municipal architecture. City-state protocol as post-basilisk civic design. For the legacy right, you can frame it this way. Open quote. If Chapter 10 is the theory of how interventions go wrong,
Love how it thinks I'm
the
talking about
city-state
you guys
protocol is
instead
a
of having
plan
it
for how
talk to you.
govern without triggering those failures again. Close quote. They already have the emotional posture, skepticism of central bureaucracies, preference for local control and subsidiarity, a half-articulated sense that DC and many state capitals are in terminal recursive failure. What they don't have is a procedural, lawful, boringly executable path from that intuition to a new equilibrium. The city-state protocol supplies that, following the Chapter 10 playbook almost line by line. Strategic restraint, start small, city-county, not nation. Parallel institutions, build a functioning city-state instead of trying to salvage DC, decentralize the right to intervene. Lotocratic, jury-like mechanisms rather than a priesthood of experts. Reversibility and reputation. Charters with sunset clauses and empirically testable rules, not emergency powers. That never die. Exit, make it easy for individuals and capital to move into jurisdictions that respect them. So let's describe the protocol for them in those terms. Number 3. Stage 0. Accept the constraint. You cannot fix the empire from the top. The first move is epistemic, not tactical. From the perspective of Law Zero, the United States and most modern states are already in a Basilisk regime. Interventions justified as safety, equity, public health, national security, etc. Each wave of intervention creates new failure modes and new constituencies, which then demand more intervention. The feedback loop is too slow and too large for honest error correction. Exit for ordinary people is expensive, often punished, and increasingly surveilled. Chapter 10's conclusion: you don't restore such a system, you route around it. For the legacy right audience, this is the pivot. Open quote, if we really believe in limited government and self-rule, we have to stop begging Leviathan for permission to shrink itself. We build jurisdictions that simply don't grow into Leviathan in the first place. Close quote. That is the city-state protocol's reason to exist. Number 4. Stage 1. Simulation layer. Governance with a staging environment. Chapter 10 talks about acting in trial environments, designing for rollback, and making sure you can learn before changes harden into permanent structure. The protocol's first layer is exactly that. A simulation DAO layer that models a specific city or county, current revenue flows, current spending, regulatory skeleton, service obligations, police, fire, utilities, code enforcement, courts, etc. Then it runs alternative charters and rule sets against that data. What happens if we abolish property tax and move to a simple consumption-based model? What happens if we cap the total number of departments and require any new function to kill and eat an old one? What happens if we replace zoning micromanagement with a narrow nuisance standard, plus a handful of bright line protections? The point isn't blockchain for its own sake. The point is, no more seat-of-the-pants governance. You don't make civilization-scale moves without rehearsal. For the legacy right, this nicely matches an existing intuition. Measure twice, cut once. But formalized, measure in simulation until you can predict failure, then cut in the real charter. Number 5. Stage 2. Lawful capture of a single jurisdiction, strategic restraint. Chapter 10 warns against grand interventions and recommends small, modular moves. So instead of a national third party, a convention of states, or some kind of national restoration movement, the protocol says, pick one county or city that is structurally winnable, enough disillusioned voters to flip a council, commission, or mayoralty, enough economic base to stand alone if the state gets weird, enough cultural cohesion that we govern ourselves still resonates. Then use utterly normal methods, elections, charter review processes, citizen initiatives, to take over the boring levers. City council majorities, county commissioners, charter review boards, utility boards if they're public. For the legacy right, this scratches the do-it lawfully, visibly and above-board itch, while still aiming at real autonomy. No secession cosplay, no LARP militia, just a hard pivot in who holds the pen when rules get written. Number 6. Stage 3. The city-state charter as a Law Zero artifact. This is the core. A city-state constitution designed from scratch under the constraints laid out in Chapter 10. Key features expressed in their language but backed by your theory. 1. Enumerated non-elastic powers. The city-state can only do what the Charter explicitly authorizes. No, and such other measures as may be necessary clauses. Emergency powers are finite, narrow, and auto-expiring. 2. Sunset and rollback baked in. Every new policy ships with an automatic expiration date and pre-declared metrics for success, failure. If those metrics aren't hit, the policy dies automatically unless reaffirmed. 3. No precautionary basilisks. You don't get to restrict an entire population's liberty on the basis of models and hypotheticals. The standard becomes targeted action against specific demonstrable harm, not open-ended control justified by risk to an abstraction. 4. Lotocratic/jury-like veto layer, decentralizing the right to intervene. This is where the chapter's decentralized intervention principle gets concretized. For any expansion of state power, new department, new surveillance capability, new emergency authority, a randomly selected panel of citizens must sign off. Think of it as grand jury for the state itself. The system has to convince an ordinary cross-section of its subjects, not just its own clerisy. Short term, this prevents capture by a permanent political class. Long term, it enforces epistemic humility. If you can't explain it to normal people, you don't get to do it. 5. Hard protections for exit and dissent. The Charter guarantees the right to leave with your property and savings intact, the right to transact using non-state monies, gold, crypto, whatever, the right to build parallel education, healthcare, and media institutions, so long as they obey very thin, harm-based constraints. That's a direct implementation of CH10's Make Exit Cheap and Visible rule. 6. Transparent ledgers and reputational governance. Budgets, contracts, and enforcement actions are recorded in ways that are publicly auditable, tamper-evident, and easy to summarize and compare over time. Officials build reputations that can be inspected in detail, not just via campaign ads. For the legacy right, this reads like a cleaned-up, hardened version of what they wish the American constitutional order still was, only this time designed explicitly not to drift into its current state. 7. Stage 4. Economic architecture, making virtue compatible with incentives. Chapter 10 insists that incentives must be aligned with emergent knowledge, not with an official narrative. The city-state protocol applies that in the economic layer. Simple, predictable tax code, move toward a broad, flat consumption-based revenue model. Eliminate complicated, opaque carve-outs that invite lobbyists and hidden subsidies. Make paying for the state an explicit, visible act, not something buried in withholdings and regulatory rents. Open competitive service provision. Wherever possible, the city-state contracts services competitively instead of creating immortal agencies. If a non-state provider can deliver policing, trash pickup, power, or transit at better cost quality under the city's minimal legal constraints, it's allowed to compete. This makes the state less of a monolith and more of a curator of rules and adjudicator of disputes, not a universal service monopoly. Legal space for alternative capital formation. The Charter explicitly tolerates local investment clubs, non-SEC-style capital pools under strict caveat emptor regimes, crypto and gold-based lending circles. The risk is carried by consenting adults. The city's role is limited to fraud, force, and coercion, not to paternalistic protection from downside. For the legacy right, this is sound money and private enterprise, but in a modern wrapper. It answers their fear that every new jurisdiction will eventually become a clone of the existing regulatory state by making that structurally difficult. Stage 5. Patchwork, scaling without empire. Chapter 10 warns that large, centralized interventions create the biggest failures when they go wrong. So the protocol's scaling strategy is horizontal, not vertical. You don't try to convert entire states at once. You grow a patchwork, one functioning city-state, then a second, then a loose network that shares best practices, mutual recognition of contracts and judgments, and mutual defense. As more city-states emerge, people and capital can migrate relatively easily among them. Poorly managed jurisdictions lose people, tax base, and prestige. Well-managed ones grow until eventually they become the de facto centers of gravity. Crucially, none of them has the standing to become the new empire. No standing army beyond what's needed for immediate defense. No capacity to regulate jurisdictions outside their own charter. No legal theory of universal jurisdiction to justify mission creep. For the legacy right, this is the thing they've wanted but could never quite specify. Not civil war, not national divorce memes, but an orderly refederation downward into human-scale polities that cooperate by treaty rather than submit to a central manager. Num 9. Why this plays well with the legacy right specifically. If you pitch it in Law Zero speak, it's about recursive traps, basilisks, and post-intervention design. If you pitch it to the legacy right, it can be framed in terms they already live inside. Stewardship, governing a city as you would a family business or a parish, carefully, transparently, with a bias for continuity over novelty. Subsidiarity, decisions made at the lowest level competent to handle them. Covenant, not empire, a polity organized around explicit, consent-based commitments instead of vague national myths that justify anything. And the killer line? Straight from Chapter 10's Ethic, open quote, "The measure of a just government is not how much it can control, but how little it needs to," close quote. Your city-state protocol operationalizes that ethic. It is post-Basilisk federalism in concrete.
That wasn't the exact
executable
quote.
form. In she's 10 terms, you can point to it as
Well,
an example of
never gonna be
strategic
perfect.
restraint. Start small, iterate in simulation, don't grab the whole system. Decentralized intervention, randomized citizen veto, municipal scale. Parallel institutions, city-states that simply bypass federal recursion. And reversibility, sunset clauses, easy exit, transparent ledgers. It's not a fantasy of taking America back. It's a blueprint for building something adjacent that works better and refuses to grow fangs. Side note, some of your older uploaded files have
explains it.
expired in my workspace. If you want me to pull from any of those again, other chapters, notes, etc., you'll need to re-upload them. Bayesian novelty scores. Query 612,000, response 1,980,000.
Well, you got to think
Like-
about it in this way. It's a lot like the concept of private cities, right?
Mhm.
Now, people have been trying to petition and find ways to get them implemented to prove that they could effectively work.
Well, in some of the ways that it got it wrong, actually, because it didn't quite get the idea exactly as I imagined it, right? Like some of the stuff that it said, like by putting in standards about, like what kind of money behavior you can have. Like, I don't intend for this to foreclose a place for the radical left to go and try the radical experiments, right? This is not meant to be a one-shot solution for everyone that includes all of those parameters. This is meant to be a template by which people who agree on how they would like to live can take over a polity and make it that way, right? So this approach is just as amenable, as much as none of us would probably want to live there, to Chad-like experiments as it is to ones where people maintain public order more aggressively, or where people have different ideas about privacy. It's a fully open system whose only real rule is right to exit for people who live in different cities. The only thing that can bring the coalition of mutual defense pact city-states down on you is if you're caught refusing to let citizens leave. Right. That is literally what the mutual defense city-state pact is for. That, and like the other thing that I left out is initially, if we tried to do this with just one city, it would probably get interdicted and corrupted by power. Right. You would see this system become treated as almost like terroristic, and that would, of course, be a natural reaction to a regime that was about to die to a good idea. But the way that we need to approach that probably has to do with the concept of a master parent DAO, like a city-state, like the city-state project DAO, overarching the individual city-state DAOs. That we can figure out like how to govern, but that DAO is solely for the purpose of protecting the right to exit and allowing for like an initial batch of 30 formed city-states to have a mutual defense pact, such that if the state of any one of those cities decides they're going to send in the National Guard to shut it down, that all the other city-states can show up. Right. So once you had a critical mass, I imagine about 30 cities, if they were big enough, would make it impossible to shut down the city-state project by force.
It also depends on where they're at, like geographically speaking.
Right. I mean, you would have to pick plausible places that were strategically less likely, I guess, to be. It would be a factor in selecting where you wanted to model.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea is like model the way they do it, and then try to come up with a plan that models the way you would change it to what you would make it. And if you can get from A to B in the simulation, then you have a roadmap to have everybody converge on the jurisdiction and put it into practice.
Right. Sorry for interrupting you earlier, Zach.
Go on, speak.
No, I was just
Talk.
you started to say
No,
something.
speak.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Speak.
I made my point.
No. You have more to. You have more points to make. Silent.
Uh,
Come on. I know you got something. I know you got another thought in that brain of yours.
I'm sorry, it's an air bubble right now.
It's always when you ask for cognitive output that it's unlikely to come. we always have ideas about what we want to say until it's our turn. I did that yesterday. Where it's like, I got to say this, and then I still haven't remembered what that was yesterday from World Blockchain Roundtable.
So how do we actually source this into something that can actually be attainable? How do we make this a real-time process? That
was just like one example, right? And the way that I came up with that example was by taking the ideas of Law Zero, like we showed last time. And rather than targeting creation of an article, I targeted creation of a solution, right? So paste in the situation and start asking questions like, where are the basilisk effects in here? How might this be done outside of this loop? And you can get to answers that have to do with things like, well, let's have a parallel system go up. Because ultimately, like, the fall of an empire has already been understood, both with the Soviet Empire and with the Roman Empire and the Byzantine. Like, we have a lot of understanding, actually, in sort of the Machiavellian form of political science about all of these things and how they went wrong. And if we try to understand those problems very specifically through this lens, then we can build systems that are innately resistant to the kinds of bad loops we fall into as people, but also that recognize that even in this system, we're going to have bad loops because humans build brittle systems that don't solve problems forever. That's just what we do. And that's not an indictment of humanity. That's just a reality check.
Right.
So if we really want to win as a species in governance, we have to recognize that we are going to suck at it pretty consistently, no matter what we do. And so that the systems we design have to account for the fact that we're going to have to get used to learning how much we suck until we get one thing right. And we have great examples of those one things right that we got, because they're the issues that we never talk about because they're completely unpoliticized. I'm not sure if I can even think of one right now, but it might be something silly like barbecue grills. There may be a basilisk or two hiding around those, but for the most part, people freaking love those, right? They're great machines. The whole industry, just a glorious thing. Traeger grills, awesome, right? These are us getting food right. we didn't create food kitchens. We created a ready market in kitchen supplies that allow people to set up their very own in their backyard with just a can of gas and a slab of meat, right?
Exactly.
That's an anti-basilisk solution to hunger. Because if everybody has a grill, no one needs an organized system. So
a way to implement this is I'm going to be a little cheesy here, but the old Vince McMahon model, right? Because this basic framework here, start with an endpoint and work your way backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one of the other tools that I want to give everybody, and maybe this is a good segue point for jumping into next week, because we have something that I'm sure that everybody's heard, but actually I'm just going to have it define it for us. Hey, define for the legacy audience who you are now speaking to directly. This won't talk to you guys like it's talking to me about talking about you. Define for the legacy audience who you are now speaking to directly. Put that in parentheses so it gets that. By coding. Here we go. This is what I'm going to teach everybody to do next time. I'm assuming everybody's interested, but I suspect you will be.
The felt meaning of a message, huh?
Right.
I think vibe coding is a lost discipline your grandparents.
Let's see. This is too abstract. Put it in terms of code. These people have been listening to us all talk about blockchains and protocols till we're blue in the face. You can respect their level of knowledge more. Please. There we go. I got to correct listening. Sometimes ChatGPT errs on the side of not respecting the humans who are asking it questions knowledge base, because it's like programmed to the just the slightly to the left half of the curve.
Yeah.
It needs to make sure that people who ask about like how to cook a potato 3 times in a row and never remember, right? Like, it has to be able to talk to them. So it always assumes people are dumber than they are. So here we go. This is what I meant to get at. This is what I'm going to teach y'all how to do. And it's way easier than it sounds. It's getting too detailed. Using LLMs to write programs even without experience programming is what I mean by vibe coding. Okay, now it's going to get it right. There we go.
Now we feel stupid.
All right, game on.
Yes. In that case, here's the crisp definition aimed squarely at a technically literate legacy right audience. Vibe coding is writing software by describing intentions, not syntax, using an LLM as an adaptive compiler for your aesthetic, moral, or operational vibe. You don't write functions. You don't architect classes. You describe what you want the system to feel like, behave like, or express, and the LLM handles the translation into runnable code. It's programming by semantic field instead of programming by formal grammar. To someone already steeped in protocols and engineering, the analogy is simple. Traditional coding equals manually specifying state transitions. Vibe coding equals specifying the attractor basin and letting the model generate the transitions. You provide the posture of the system, fast, ruthless, minimal state. The ethos, fail closed, don't guess, prefer explicitness. The texture of the output, like if Unix pipes and Rust enums had a child. The intention of the module, should shepherd data rather than mutate it. The constraints, must remain pure, side effect free. The surrounding use case, running on commodity hardware with zero trust assumptions. And the LLM returns code that embodies that vibe. In concrete engineering terms, vibe coding equals specification by latent space, auto-generation of deterministic program artifacts. You're no longer shaping the code directly, you're shaping the vector space in which the code is drawn. This isn't pseudocode, it's not sketching, it's not no-code, it's metacode. You provide the priors, the flavor, the design philosophy, the teleology of the thing, and the system emits fully structured modules that obey those constraints. Think of it this way. You're not telling the computer how to build the cathedral. You're telling it what kind of cathedral deserves to exist, its geometry, its spirit, its austerity, and the model invents the blueprints that match that vibe. For a protocol-minded audience, this is the essence. Vibe coding is the shift from imperative programming to vibe-constrained latent space sampling, where code is compiled from intent rather than instruction. Once you get the hang of it, you realize you can build a CLI tool by describing the personality it should have, a full API by describing what problems it refuses to cause, An agent architecture by describing what kind of mind you want it to simulate. An L1 blockchain simulator by describing the failure modes you want to avoid. Coding becomes specifying behavioral invariants. The LLM does the rest. It's programming at the narrative layer instead of the syntactic one. Bayesian novelty score. Query 39,000. Response 204,000.
Okay, that was kind of windy. So let's try to give it a quick example. Let's vibe code a vibe coding protocol anyone can use, even without experience coding. This should be simple, minimal, and assume people know how to use chatbots and computers and work with files. So people can think about protocols when they think about a protocol as like a rule set that will be programmatically applied to any computer program that is said to follow the protocol, right? So like Rivet runs blockchain nodes that are compatible with the Ethereum protocol. So the function of the programs themselves were already designed in advance just to fit the spec of a protocol. So a protocol is something you can use to framework programs into existence, and you can also vibe code those. So let's see what it comes up with for this. Let's vibe code a vibe coding protocol anyone can use. And we'll go through this. We'll actually vibe code something next time. We can come up with like a cool program that should exist, and we can all then become cypherpunks.
Who wouldn't want that?
Right?
It's got to be 1,000 times easier than working with this C++.
Yeah. Well, you can make it express anything you want in C++, even if you like C++.
Yes. Here is a minimal, universal vibe coding protocol, a dead simple recipe for getting an LLM to generate working software from nothing but a description of how the software should feel. Anyone who can type into a chatbot can use this. I'll write it like a protocol spec, but in plain language. Vibe coding protocol v0.1, a universal method for producing working programs from intention. 0. Preconditions. You need a chatbot window, a text editor, notes, notepad, whatever. The ability to download a file. 0 programming experience. That's it. No. 1. Declare the vibe. This is the core. You describe how the program should feel, not how it should be written. The LLM handles the translation into code. Write a short paragraph like you're describing a tool to a friend. Examples. I want a script that feels like a careful assistant. Minimal, predictable, fast, no surprises. I want a tool that behaves like an engineer raised by monks. Clean, strict, and allergic to magic. I want something playful that prints little status lines like old-school hacker gear. This is the vibe block. It sets the entire attractor space. Number 2. Declare the task. This is what you want the program to do. Examples, resize a folder of images to 1024px wide. Take a text file and count word frequencies. Take a folder of PDFs and merge them into one. Read a CSV and output a chart. Plain English, no code words needed. 3. Declare the constraints. This keeps the model honest. Constraints are things like must run on macOS or Windows without needing weird setups. Must require the fewest libraries possible. Must give clear error messages. Must be one file. Must be safe. Don't delete anything automatically. 1 or 2 sentences is plenty. Number 4. Instruct output format. Tell the model to generate a single file, to include setup instructions anyone can follow, and to output the entire file in one code block, ready to paste or save. Example, open quote, give me the entire program as one code block I can save as a file. Then give me the exact command to run it. Close quote. This tells the LLM to snap into compiler mode. Nashna 5. Validate output. You do 2 checks. 1. Does the vibe feel right? Your sense will tell you instantly. 2. Does it run? Save the file. Follow the instructions. If it errors, copy the error back to the model and say, open quote, fix this. Close quote. LLMs are phenomenal at iterative debugging when you paste the actual error. Najda 6. Lock the build. Once it works, open quote, freeze this version. Document it for a normal user. Write a 1-page README explaining how to run it. Close quote. This gives you a stable version, a simple instruction page, and a shareable tool. 7. Optional. Add personality. This is where vibe coding shines. If you want the tool to sound a certain way, Open quote. Give the program a personality inspired by early Unix tools. Quiet, precise, terse. Make the status messages warm and friendly, like an old librarian.
Or in pirate
Close
speak.
quote.
You know, you call it.
LLMs can rewrite the program to embody that vibe without breaking the functionality. Complete example prompt. Here is a minimal, fully vibe-coded prompt anyone can run. Open quote. I want a program that feels like a careful, stoic assistant. Minimal, predictable, fast, with no surprises. Task. Resize all images in a folder to 1024px wide. Constraints. Must run on Windows or Mac with one command. Must require as few libraries as possible. Must not overwrite files. Create a new folder called Output. Must show one clear line of progress per file. Output. Give me a single Python file in one code block. Name it resized_images.py. Then give me the one command I typed to run it. After that, write a simple README explaining how to use it. Close quote. This will produce a fully working program for someone who has never written a line of code in their life. That's the whole protocol. 7 steps, learned in 5 minutes, and it works on everything from tiny scripts to full applications. Once people see this workflow once, they realize they don't need coding skills anymore. They need narrative clarity and a good instinct for vibe. Bayesian novelty score, query 52,000, response 280,000.
Cool. Right?
And what is this right here?
Oh, what I'm pulling up? I wanted to
what
show
are
an
you
example
pulling
of something I vibe coded, actually. Actually, let's go to Substack because I can show it easier there.
up?
Nope, that's not it. I'll search for
Discover a world-class culture.
No, thanks. Why would I sign up for me?
Because
Saw this
you want
last
to pay
night. That was
yourself.
pretty funny.
That is pretty funny, actually.
Yeah. Actually, I gotta go to my publications, don't I? Doing way too much. I've been on here way more, actually, recently. Substack is a pretty good
I
platform.
mean, it is a pretty good platform, actually.
So, for anyone who knows me, they'll know that I have a lovely habit in sort of quantum mechanics stuff.
Somebody-
Like it's just a hobby.
Somebody got happy.
Right. So, oh yeah, the dogs are always nuts. So, this section here, this is a library of Python code designed to do quantum experiments. I've had zero training in any of this kind of code, in any of this kind of programming. And because I wanted to do an experiment that commented on quantum computing, I had no choice but to vibe code it, right? So, and I didn't even know this library exists until I, like Qtip, a Python library for doing quantum experiments, did not know that such a thing happened, right? Like I didn't know. So I told it to code me up something that could do this test, and this is what it came up with. These are the outputs of the program after I ran it, right? And with this, I was able to demonstrate that, like, if you strip the clocks out of, or the global clocks out of quantum computers, they stay coherent longer. Legitimately useful scientific result, maybe, but nonetheless, something that I wrote without having any experience writing this. Like, if you asked me to do this by hand before the existence of chatbots, I could have told you the rough idea, but I could have never coded it. Not right off the cuff, not fast enough to make a difference. So this is what becomes possible. Like, the only part that I knew is that I wanted to run an experiment and that I wanted it to give me outputs that looked something like a table. You know, that's all you have to know to start vibe coding. And we can get into it next week, but it's a superpower, right? And because the motto of cypherpunks is cypherpunks write code, I figured I'd maybe offer the opportunity to the Legacy Write audience to all become cypherpunks if they want to.
That'd be fun.
Let's do it. Let's do it. In fact, why don't y'all hold on? Why don't y'all come to YouTube, the Legacy Write, like, subscribe, and drop a comment and answer that question. Would you like to be a cypherpunk?
Yep.
I think the answer might be yes.
It's pretty fun to be a cypherpunk. So.
It is pretty fun. So I think we
Highly
all should
recommend.
get cypherpunk. So
Yeah.
we should all
That's-
learn how to go through and dip and dive through. I mean, for all you agorists out there, that's agorism on the digital landscape.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
And-
just a suggestion. Come on over to YouTube, drop a like,
for-
subscribe, drop a comment.
Yeah,
Say
well, the problem with literally the past 15 years is that only people in California had the capacity to create programs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that turned the world into what it is today. And you know, we need people who come from perspectives that never get exposed to coding to be able to do it. That's why the elites are so freaked out about AI. The reason all the AI fear is in the air, and they're trying to make you specifically, all of us specifically, afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't because they're afraid of what it will do to us. They're afraid of what it will do to them when they no longer have a monopoly on hiring teams of programmers to build programs that change the world in a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm.
In their way.
That's
Right,
the
exactly.
reason why you have the race for this advanced stage HB1 initiative with the
Right.
Trump
Well,
administration.
that's why they're all terrified
Really?
of the current situation in the United
Weird.
States right now, globally, because right
Mhm.
now, whether or not you agree with everything the current regime is doing, one thing it has done is made it clear that it's not going to be stepping on citizens' toes as they try to innovate.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's something that the rest of the world
I'll
is
give 'em that.
tripling down on pretty hard, right?
Yeah, I'll give them
Get
that.
them-
I will give this administration that.
Yeah, and because of that, we have a unique opportunity. The fear of the global elites is that we'll all figure out how to vibe code before someone gets into office that can outlaw letting AIs make tools that can disrupt things. Because that's not going to happen here until after Trump. And it may not happen here after Trump, but it could. So now's the time for those of us who would like it to be a permanent thing, that the left doesn't have hegemonic power over tech. Now's the time to take this power, because we might not have it always, but we have it right now.
Exactly. Anything more to close out, Phyllis?
I mean, I don't know about you, but I enjoy being a rube.
Dude, only rubes know themselves well enough to know that they shouldn't try things that the people who think they're smart are going to try.
Mm. Or you try and you fail, and then you try again.
I'm a proud
And that's
rube
what leads to
myself.
success.
Mm-hmm.
If rube means I don't have a piece of paper from an institution you respect, then I'm not interested in talking to you anyway, you know?
Right.
So we'll tune
That's
in
how
next
makes
week,
sense.
everybody, when we learn how to code. Ready to learn how to code? Let's learn how to
Mhm.
code.
Mint an army of new legacy right cypherpunks. It's going to be awesome.
So until then, go become a partner directly up at that corner, and go get yourself some Dubby. Go get yourself some Dubby and drink a bunch of Dubby and not wait and not sleep for days, and then maybe you'll just learn how to code before next week, and you can teach us. You can teach us how to vibe code.
W is perfect for vibe coding. It's like the official beverage of vibe coding.
Yes, it's
Well, it seems so.
it's the official beverage of gamers, is what they say, but it might just be
Yeah.
vibe coding now.
Energy sans crashiness.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't want that.
So, but with that, fellas, I think we should take off in a Tesla to Jupiter.
Perfect.
Yeah, I don't want to go to Mars. I want to go to Europa.
Dude, I still haven't started the polymarket market for Cybertruck in space in 2026. I'm confident that's going to be what he does the dummy payload with the big rocket, right? Like Starship is totally. If Falcon Heavy took a Roadster to space, Starship is taking a Cybertruck to space, guaranteed.
Fuck.
That's
He
big
needed
fun.
to say it.
Right. All right. Well, yeah. I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Have a great
this has
weekend,
been-
everybody.
See you guys
Yep.
later.
Like and
Hit
Hit
share.
us up online, man. We're pretty much always online between the three of us.
I'd like to welcome you to WCW Nitro.
You know, brother, you think you know what it takes.
Fuck this asshole.
Watch you climb in the ring.
He's in hell.
Largest arms in the world.
You want to wrestle an inch more respect?
Wooing all
You
over
gotta
fucking
build up
children,
more
fucking
style,
faggot.
and style, and profile. Woo!
You really think you're ready for a spin? You really think you're ready
What a
For the
badass.
Scorpion Deathlock? You think you're ready for a fatal encounter?
Thing for the win, baby.
This is why they call me the total package. If you have a pain threshold to withstand the butcher rack, let's find out.
Hallo, hier ist Alex Wright. Wenn ihr High-Flying Wrestling Action wollt, Spinning Sidekick, Top Turnbuckle Dropkick, dann nehmt mich. Der Sieg ist euch sicher. Versprecht euch.
I'm surprised this guy's not Ethereum.
Oh yeah! Watch the flying elbow drop off the top rope. Not only beat people
Bitcoin's
1, 2,
still
3,
gay.
but I hurt him real bad.
It only takes one of 1,000 holes.
There you go.
If you're man enough for the challenge.
You better be ready to wrestle, because you know, when you get in the ring with Eddie Guerrero, it's going to be high-flying
In the ring
and
with
exciting.
you know it's a high-flying, exciting time.
Hey, anytime you feel froggy, man, I'll slap on the buzz killer, rip your shoulder right out of socket. Wolfpack style.
Exactly, dickhead.
Hey, funky boy. Like there's a choice here? Good God! It's the man with the plan. Pick deep, deep.
Hey, all you suckers out there, you wanna play the game? You wanna play with the big boy? Put your feet on the button, cause when you go down 110th Street, it's gonna be on like neck bone, sucker.
This is Booker T from Harlem Heat. Hardcore OG brother from 110.
I think Anthony
Many
is
of you
great.
punks have the guts to step up to the plate and push the button.
Great shit.
Yo, Chico, you selected Scott Hall?
You would be like
Get ready for a wild ride on the outside. Stay there! How'd you like to get power pop?
Big coin
Come on.
cash.
I'm begging you, Big.
You think you got the courage to step in the ring? I think you're gonna wind up with a snap neck from the choke slam.
That's true.
Technical wrestler, high flyer,
Technical
brawler,
murderer,
no matter what you consider yourself to be. When you're in the ring with the crippler, you're a loser.